Do something. I want to check where this mix was with my last version, the version I mixed before this plugin existed. With just a handful of plugins, including aux returns that were part of the library that came with the plugin for free. And I'm going to make my own, by the way. But just with a handful of plugins on my buses and on the main vitals of the track, here's the original.
We won't agree on everything, even if we try.
Here's the new.
We won't agree on everything, even if we try. 'Cause we rebel as different as the days from the night. We'll fight.
I like this one better.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
You guys are from space.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another ControlHub live stream. I am Dylan. I'm your support guru and all things making things work over on the STL team. Very excited for the stream today. We have Jeff Juliano with us. Before we bring Jeff in, just wanted to briefly mention we have the new Steve Evans Tone Hub and Kemper packs out today. Highly recommend you check them out. Just a ripper of a pack. 52 presets. It's wonderful. And then also on the topic of ControlHub, if you have not updated to the latest version, definitely recommend you update with the new EQ mode. Ton of new functionality and some fixes, and it's just a great time. But let's get to the reason we are here. We are here today with Jeff Juliano, producer, mixer extraordinaire. Has worked on albums from Dan Shay, Florida Georgia Line, Brad Paisley, Tim McGraw, Tate McRae, Gabby Barrett, so many more. I think collectively worked on records that have sold over 56 million copies. So we are very, very psyched to have Jeff in here talking about his new ControlHub pack. And I'm going to bring Jeff in right now.
Hey now.
Hey, Jeff. What's up, man?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being here. This is
It's great to be here.
This is the second live stream we've done for ControlHub, so we're still it's a real run and gun situation. I'm just glad you could be here to join us and chat with us.
Yeah, I'm here I can answer any questions, and you guys can probably answer a bunch of mine as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I know. I'm always afraid when we jump on because if something's not working, our A&R guy sends you to me, but I'm always afraid that there's something that he hasn't mentioned that I'm just like, oh, like on the spot, like, yes, let me run the support for you very quickly.
No, it's been great. It's been awesome.
Awesome, man. How are you doing? How's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm just busy doing my, mixing every day is a different song or different artist. So
yeah,
that's my typical world. It's
busy.
exciting. Keeping busy, always busy. Actually, too
Always
busy. When we were making this plugin, I think I drove your team crazy because I'm like, I don't have time to finish this. Like, wait, you got to do it.
Like, yeah,
So
yeah. Like,
I'm glad we hit this stage because it's really hard to juggle.
Yeah,
I didn't realize how big of an undertaking it would be, and it's been awesome. I learned a lot during the process.
Yeah, it's very funny when we explain the process to people of what's going to go into making the packs. It's like, it sounds, I don't know, maybe much like you get the finished product and you're like, oh yeah, it's all these presets. This is great. But what goes into making the presets?
But it's way more than that. And what I found in making it was I was doing a bunch of things like, basically we'll get to, I guess, the point that it's a bunch of models of my chains of gear that I've been using forever and what I use every day. But what I was finding was I was actually putting things in that it didn't need and creating problems in my chain and correcting them with the next stage. So it was a great thing to basically, deconstruct my process. For you guys, and then go, wait, I don't need that there. Yeah. That screwed me. I was actually using that stage behind it to fix what I created. So it was a big problem solving thing in my own head as well.
That rule is kind of like reevaluating. Like, do you need...
And I simplified my own process and made it easier on myself. So
yeah, it's really funny. I just came out of the studio with my band and I'm rebuilding my room, which is why it's desolate behind me.
Right.
But I had the same thing. I got back here and I sat at my desk and I was like, I didn't use half of this stuff. Like, yeah, this needs to go. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love the simplification. I think it's a great.
It's a
I think
good, it's a
great
good thing. It's good for keeping you inspired, and
Yeah.
less clutter is always good
Yeah,
in my
like
world, at least.
new process every time.
Sure.
Where are you working out of these days?
This is my studio. It's in I live in the Rehoboth Beach area of Delaware. It's a small
Okay.
little kind of like coastal Delaware,
Yeah.
small. I think I'm the only guy making records here. Oh, there's another guy, Junior Lee, and there's another like my neighbor is a guitar player in 4
Oh, wow.
bands. We share a fence line. But Jimmy Allen is from my town. He's from here, so he's another big country artist. But I think that honestly, I don't think there's anybody else in my state doing what they're doing, this stuff in their backyard in their own studio.
That rules, though.
If they are, hit me up, because I'd love to hang out and drink a beer and actually have something in common with someone.
Yeah.
For once.
Were you ever based in Nashville?
No,
No.
we were thinking about it, but we were actually really thinking about it years ago. My wife and I were like, okay, because I wanted to break into country music, but unless you live inside the walls of the 615 area code, that's pretty impossible. So when I got a song with Dan and Shay, that kind of blew the doors open, and I'm so grateful for that. So now I'm working with, the phone hasn't stopped ringing for country, and that's great, because it's so many. It's been great. We don't have to move. I looked at my wife one night, a few years ago. I'm like, I don't think we have to ever. We don't.
It's
knock on wood.
Especially mixing, it's truly, you can do it anywhere. And
yeah, and
like
I mean, I've been living remotely, in terms of working remotely, since I started mixing solely. I think it was 2004 when I threw in the engineering towel and gave a bunch of my mics to my friends. And I said, look, if I ever ask for these mics back, because I was burnt out as an engineer, as a tracking engineer, I was totally fried. And I just wanted to mix. I said, look, if I ever ask for my mics back, talk me out of them. Talk me out of it. Don't give them back to me. That means I need to get back in. I got to stick with mixing and do that. Yeah. So I've been working this way since 2004 with artists from all over the world. So I have, even in our house in Maryland, I did the same thing. So
2004. What was it like back then, trying to get like mix notes in?
Well, first of all, it was kind of weird, because it was notes, but sometimes you had an overnight a CD.
Oh yeah.
I'm dating myself there, but that's the world I grew up in. That's you overnighted a product to somebody. Yeah. I've mixed a lot in other studios as well, but it never made sense to me sonically to get used to a room and your speakers and your environment and know how it sounds, and jump around and go mix in another studio.
Yeah.
Because then you're screwing yourself, and then you're making more work on yourself in the end. And that's just, I'm not about that. So I had to build my own room, and
for sure.
This is my new room, which is amazing, because I'm fully set up for Dolby Atmos and the whole thing in here. So I can do both formats. It's great.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I know we were talking about that before we jumped on, and just the level of complexity that jumps up when you just start.
It's a whole nother world, man. But if I don't do it, someone else will, and then I don't want that. So
you want ultimate control over,
especially with the products, the stuff I mix. If it's something else, if I don't have to mix someone else's, if I don't mix someone else's stuff in Atmos that they recorded, mixed, that's okay. If I can cover my own, that's the whole reason I did this, protect my own stuff.
Yeah, I also feel like there's like not a ton of people doing Atmos currently, so it's
there is, but there's, I don't know, it's the Wild West. There's no one, there's a lot of rules from Apple on deliverables, which drive everybody crazy, and they always change them, but that's what they do, their company. But it's definitely it's something that I I learn something new every day, and the techniques change weekly. So everybody, I have like a core group of friends. We text each other like, "You doing this?" "No, I'm not doing that."
I was gonna say, so you have your mix room, you're set up for Atmos now.
Yep.
So are you? We had talked about this briefly, but like, are you mostly in the box now at this point?
100%.
100% in the box
for 4 years.
For 4? Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. I've said this a lot in other podcasts and things, but like so much of my job is repeatability of like, someone calls me and says, hopefully they say, we love everything, but you need to bring the vocal up in the second verse on this line. The snare drum hits too hard in this chorus. And then they want everything else the same. And I was running into the world of and I love gear, don't get me wrong, but I would run into the situation where I was hung up on recalls because I had a vintage 1176 on the lead vocal, and it didn't work the day I went to do the recall. And then I had to ship it to Vintage King in LA to fix it. And I'm like waiting weeks. And I remember the record, it was this guy, Hunter Hayes. And I was like, "Hey man, I can't do your recall." He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Cause my vintage Neve limiter on your vocal isn't working." And here's the other problem I had with Outboard. And I won't say it's a problem, but it was something I was running into a ton, because every day is like literally a different song, a different artist, most of the time. if I jump back to something, say I was going to I was going through and printing the gear to the vocal or the drums. I would go through a drum kit and put it through a bunch of Neves and make it sound bitchin'. What I thought, print it back in the session is like, great. And then one of the recall notes was the Dropbox link of, hey, here's the new pocketed drum kit. Can you just slide this in, bounce it, and we're done. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, I wasn't at this point when I was printing it back in, I'm like, I don't need to notate what the shelf was on that 1073, where it was. My Chandler limiter, I don't know where it was.
Yeah.
So then I had to recreate it, and Hunter did it with me on vocals, and he's like, here's the new vocal. I'm like, shit, man. I printed that because the last time we worked, anyway, it was one of the things where gear was hanging me up with my schedule.
Absolutely.
And I honestly think we're to the point with technology when you can take and it's put in my plugin. I'll use that for an example. The chain I have in my vocal plugin or vocal preset is all the stuff I used forever. And when I got to the point, circle back to modeling, I think modeling is to the point where it's so close.
Oh yeah.
That it really, you're splitting hairs. But like I told you before, if I was an engineer, still tracking engineer, I would have I had 2 Neve sidecars. I had all this great shit. I actually wish I still had it just for the nostalgic part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was holding me back.
Yeah.
And sonically, I was, this is the last thing I'll leave at this, is the fact that when you have hardware, and when I was using hardware, I would always stick to the same stuff. Like, oh, I got to use that because that's my stereo bus.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went in the box, I was like, wait, maybe I want a Fairchild on this song on the stereo bus instead of my Red 3 or my SSL Allen Smart. Yeah. So it opened a lot of me of like flexibility.
Absolutely.
Like a whole new palette of colors, I would say.
Yeah. It's truly the most beautiful time to be a musician if you are interested in technology at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it's perfect. I agree with you on the tracking thing.
But it helps that I grew up learning that stuff. I own the actual hardware that I use in plugins, so I understand, okay, you can drive this and it makes this, gets this effect, and this is cooler. And you don't want to do this with this piece of gear. It's just not cool. Absolutely. So instinctively, I know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
It's more so with like my generation. It was more like, I remember my first time going into a studio and being like, whoa, this is an LA2A. I've only ever touched this in a plug-in form.
Yeah.
Like,
I grew up on Mixed Magazine. So like I would walk into these studios, some of the places I worked in as a tracking engineer, and I'd be like, oh, this is heaven. So like it was a standard to just go, let's go to this studio and track because let's track drums here because the console has 16 Neve 1081s and 16 1064s. And let's go there, and we'll go somewhere else to do vocals because at that point you only need one channel.
Yeah.
So, but to grab all that color and understand that color early on helped me a ton.
Oh, that rules.
Yeah.
We had a question in the chat, which was weirdly lined up with my little outline that I'm looking at over here. Daniel had asked, would you do us the honor and tell us your general philosophy about mixing? And then we'll get into the pack part, but just generally, like, what's your general mix process and kind of bigger philosophy, if you don't mind diving into it a little bit.
That's a good question. Philosophy wise, make this song work. Don't be tied down. Like I just said, don't be tied down. I got to use this on vocals. Just listen to the song, understand it, like figure out the song, understand what it needs. And it helps. Like if you're a musician, it totally helps. Then you can understand the parts, what the hooks are and whatnot. And really my focus is to listen to the song all the way down and then just start, and I don't go reference other songs that are similar to it on Spotify. That drives me crazy. And I get in my own head about that. So I like going through the song and just building it as an instrumental, understanding it, and then bringing in the vocals and doing all that. But I would say just do what the song needs and leave your ego behind, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's a great,
serve the song.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The song is at the end of the day, like, right.
Even no matter the genre, it's still the lyric. Unless it's like, I don't know. It's just, you've got to just work for the song, not for yourself.
Absolutely. I saw, I was chopping up, that intro video was chopped up from your In the Mix session you did with us. Right. And I've got some more that we can play if we want to go over a few of those presets. I don't know whether it derails our conversation or not, but I did notice when I was cutting that up, and like that'll be posted for everybody to watch, like the full length. It's like 30 minutes of you diving into that song, which is just such a treat. But I noticed you said that you'll mute the vocals and just work with the instrumentals and get everything balanced that way.
Yeah.
So that by the time the vocals are coming in, you like deeply understand the song and the kind of moves you need to be making.
Musically, yeah.
Yeah.
But that goes against the grain of saying it's all about the lyric, right? But that to me helps in terms of balance. It helps in terms of drums punching. It helps because sometimes if you start with all this big lush stuff, then you're like the drums sound anemic and they're small. And let's face it, like everybody who mixes got into mixing for drums. I mean, from my generation, drums and that was it. Snare drum basically sold. I bought so many records when I was younger because of the snare drum sound.
Yeah.
I mean, I could care less what the guy was saying. And my wife today, we hear these songs on like Spotify and like throwback playlists, and I'm like, listen to that snare. She's like, I love these lyrics. I'm like, I never knew what the hell they were singing about. I bought that record because of the snare drum.
That's incredible.
I think it really helps to understand the song musically and where things are going on a sonic soundscape kind of vision, and then bring the stuff in. And then I work faster that way. And I don't want to put a timer on when I mix. I'm not one of these guys that says, hey, I mix that song in an hour. I take as long as it takes to get the song done and to get in my brain, get it out where I thought it should have landed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
just all about the flow and just getting it.
Yeah. But but back to the instrumental thing, I think that really helps.
Yeah.
And I think people should try it.
Yeah. I weirdly, I know you say it goes against the grain, but it actually kind of makes sense of like, if the vocal is typically in pop music the most important thing,
right,
then like making everything else work around it, probably helps to not have it just on top of everything.
Yeah. And then you can honestly do something like you have your whole music bus and you have your whole vocal bus at that. And then you just blend the two together. And at the end, like I do a bunch of buses, like a drum bus, a bass bus, a programming bus, keys, guitars, acoustic guitars, strings, and a lead vocal and the background vocal bus. And I can get the mix sounding great. And at the end, I can rebalance the whole thing. If I get to the end and everything just competing with each other, I can just pull down my main buses and rebalance the song with 8 or 10 faders and get a whole new vibe or perspective on the song just by doing that. So that's helpful to, again, build it from the ground up.
Yeah. Almost like an outline of, kind of signposts.
Yep.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel, for that question.
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah. If you have questions, leave them in the chat and we will.
And if you cut me off, I get too long winded.
No. We love it. I mean, there's nothing better than like hearing somebody talk about, or at least for me, like hearing somebody who is very good at what they do, talking about essentially what makes them good at what they do. So it's very nice to hear. We should probably get into the pack. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason we're here, right? And so we need to start with what I don't want to say like a monumental deal this is, but this is a pretty big deal in that this is the first country and kind of pop focused pack we've released.
I don't have any tattoos.
ControlHub. Yeah, you don't have any tattoos.
I told that to Chris when he's filming. He's like, "What do you think about? What's your thing about Control?" I'm like, "I'm the only guy you have that doesn't have tattoos."
That's so funny. Because I know we've done a collaboration with Michael Britt on the ToneHub side of things. But as far as ControlHub and kind of the broader looking, I think this is a big step out for us. And I know we were excited that you were interested in collaborating. So
I'm psyched. I'm psyched because I built this thing to use it myself. Because there's guys that make plug-in presets and the expansion packs and they just do it for money. And I just and I get that. I mean, everybody needs to eat, right? But I did it because I was stoked to do it for myself for the fact that it's something I'm going to use every day and it simplifies my workflow. Why wouldn't I do that?
That's such a like treat to hear. I know you're in the mix video. You're I mean the intro, you beat your own mix with the plugin and I was laughing so hard.
I don't know if in the video, because videos are always, cameras are weird to me, and that was late. That was like 1 a.m. by that time we did that. But so I think I forgot, and I hope I didn't, who knows, it may be in the video footage, to do the bypass of all plugins, all STL on the session, and then with it. So basically, as you hear the raw files, or there's the raw without the mix bus on, because that whole thing had the mix bus on. But in the video, I wanted to basically show that I had this huge session with all these plugins and all these parallel sends and chains and buses and all stuff. And I took all that off and just put your plugin, the one in the stuff I designed for you guys, on the channels.
Yeah.
And it sounded to me exactly the same, if not 10% better, with every bit of, knowledge in my brain going into the routing of the previous session. So it's kind of scared me, honestly, because I'm like, shit, this is too easy for people.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm still like, I use it. I'm not a great mix engineer, but I use it mostly to like try
Oh,
to
to help
make
you
what I'm
become
doing
one.
like make what I do sound better. And like, this is my first impression in using your pack, which is, this sounds like such a, I don't want to say a stock answer, but it really does just make everything sound better. Like,
That's the point.
that's what I've
Hopefully,
discovered.
if it sounds worse, we should just turn this off right now.
It feels like cheating. It's like the make better button almost. Like you put it
Yeah.
in. A lot of your presets have kind of like a depth to them.
Good.
Yeah, it's like
I
it's
tried
creating
for
like a
that.
depth
That's
and
hard.
Like
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, kind of the sheen that I'm looking for on certain things. When I'm working in this type of genre. And so yeah, that was like my number one first impression when I was clicking through and like playing with the presets, is like,
Yeah.
this just sounds good.
And you
It
should try. I
rules.
should note that when people are trying this out, start with like, if you mix in like everybody else, like people mix into a mix bus and just go to the mix bus first. And because I'm a top down kind of mixer, I always mix into my mix bus and I tweak it throughout the song, throughout the day. I adjust it. And if I'm hitting it too hard or whatnot, or maybe change out the compressor or whatnot, but start with that and then start putting stuff on the tracks. And then you'll get a better picture of where my headspace was when I created it. So
That was literally my next question, because
Okay.
you had texted me that, like, hey, make sure
Yeah.
you're mixing through my mix bus.
it made a
presets.
difference, right?
Yeah, and
You're right,
and
right,
so,
right.
so we should like put a disclaimer up of like, if you're using the pack, you should,
Yeah, because I mean,
maybe
some
not
of this
a rule, but like you should try starting from
Yeah.
the mix bus, working back.
right, because it's kind of an all in one package at that point. It's like anybody can say, okay, this is going to sound good on a snare drum, but the snare drum setting with whatever preset name mixed with this drum bus that goes to this mix bus, that's where my head is when I work.
Yeah.
And so that's I when with making this with you guys, I gave you exactly what I do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, it kind of scared me. Josh sent me the first version back, and I'm like, shit, this is too close. I got to take something off, man, because like I don't want to take away from my career. I mean, I know that you don't hire someone because of what plugin presets they have. You hire them for their instinct, their brain, and everything else, and how they see and hear stuff. But there was an aspect where like, hats off to your modeling process. I told my wife, I'm like, they must have an alien trapped. They're like an Area 51 with an alien in a spaceship, and that is how they decode what I gave. Because what I gave you and what I heard back was so identical. It was crazy.
Yeah, our development team is
spot on.
They're wizards. I don't know how they do it.
Totally.
It's I that kind of got into what my biggest like with ControlHub so far. There's kind of been, I really think there's like two ways that people are approaching the packs, which is like, here's kind of like my gear, and here's kind of a general starting spot for the moves I would make. But I feel like yours is really workflow focused, and like, here's the steps I take to like hit the mix in the best possible way.
I'm glad that translated.
Yeah.
Because I worked really hard to make that exactly what you just said, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, down to like your preset names, I feel are very literal, and like, do this and it'll work.
Why not make it blunt instead of saying snare 2?
Yeah.
Who cares? What is snare 2?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Actually, on that note, we should I'll play a little video of that kind of in motion. Let's talk. Let's look at your drums. Here we go. A little drums clip from the
Right. Well, that drums. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah. We can talk about it.
No. I'm saying the drums in that song, like a lot of your stuff, and the hard hitting drum things. This song and a lot of stuff I do is kind of like this, where it's a drum kit blended with a ton of programming, and it's not just about the drums. It's about how the whole package of drums and percussion programming all glue together in the end. So yeah, like in that song, I think there's a mono overhead. I don't know why they did that, but I think it's, when I listen to the track, I'm like, shit, that's mono, but it works with everything else that's kind of shimmering around it in the percussion side.
That's really funny. We had a question from Daniel saying, when you're mixing a song where you're having more programmed drums, kind of like an easy drummer or superior drummer type thing. Asked in two parts. What's your take on making it sound like a session drummer in a great room, or is it more challenging as compared to a session drummer recorded in a
way more challenging because the glue isn't there. So you really gotta, especially if it's split out, like the overheads are. If this is what I do when I get these things, because if I get a drum kit that's just programming, say Easy Drummer, and a lot of people do that.
Mhm.
And the overheads are just overheads. And I guess an Easy Drummer, you can bleed in the drum kit a little bit so it sounds more real. I'll call the producer and say, give me these overheads with the bleed of the drum kit, please. I'll do that all the time. If something is going to make this song better, and I know that's a phone call or a text away to the producer or artist, and they can send it to me in 10 minutes, I'm going to do that. So that's that. I try to, like, with Easy Drummer, it's hard to, the glue thing. That's where I lean on more tape stuff and more like SSL kind of compression on that, just to kind of round it in.
Kind of like
And
create that effect.
Yeah. And a lot of the time adding a little bit of space, like rooms on overheads. And I did that in the presets for the reverbs. I did like overhead space and snare space, where you just put a little bit like of a 0.7 second of a room and blend in like 15% on them on the overheads. Automatically, it's like not just crash, crash, crash. It's kind of sounds like a guy playing in a room.
I actually have a clip of that. Let's play that one for the drums. It's,
okay, cool.
It segues nicely.
Great.
Stuff like this on overheads. Like if it's a mono overhead, sometimes I'll take, like the effects on here that are built into ControlHub are awesome, because I'll take a short room and just add a little bit of it in to give it some imaging and depth, and that totally works on this. Here with and without the room on it. Here's without. Now with. Just gives a little depth, and it's a little cooler and a little more sitting, and it will sit in the track.
Yeah. There you go.
I repeated myself. I'm sorry.
No,
but I
really
do it all
funny.
the time, man. I do it all the time because tracks I get, like they're from great engineers and you know, you name it, tracks come in from everywhere, but I'm always having to recreate some kind of space.
Yeah.
And having tools like that at the ready just to go is amazing. It's priceless.
Yeah. Like being able to just shape the sound exactly to your liking.
Yeah. And like,
serve the song.
Yeah. Like Daniel asked, like, how do you make it work with the kid and make it sound real?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, I think especially now, 2022, with how much home recording occurs, and
oh my God,
and trying
there's always part of it that is like, oh man, that's the air conditioner.
Yeah,
I mixed a pop song yesterday for this kid on Sony. He's great, but I could hear a rumble of an air conditioner in the background. I'm like, thank God for filters, right?
Yeah, filter.
Yeah.
Bless all of the beautiful technology.
And these are big records. Like they're not. This is not like you think. Oh, it's an indie project that happens on. No, I'm talking this. There's always an element from, not always, but for a lot of times there's a handful of tracks in a session that are like, how am I going to work with that? And someone overdubbed that had some issues that day. But you gotta. No one cares about that. The only thing they care is that at the end product sounds great. They don't want to hear you complain about it. But I do try to ask, hey man, can you give this to me cleaner?
Yeah, to have like the best possible capture.
Yeah. Can you try it again? Take you 5 minutes, dude.
No, it's I want to keep the magic of the air conditioner in the background.
Yeah, right.
Cool. Yeah. That's a great thing. So I guess, I mean, there's so many things we can go through. You have 108 presets in this pack, which is just mind blowing. So we've talked about your general approach as far as kind of capturing from the top down mixing perspective. Mm-hmm. And I guess, what was your general approach on the kind of preset focused moves? So like in your treatment of drums, I know we talked about the effects, which we can touch back on, or like in your treatment of vocals, what is kind of your, was it still just down to like, here is what I'm going to want to do to treat this piano, so that's going to be the preset. Like this is my starting point, and these are the moves I want to make.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I took the piano of the song, and there's things I've done with pianos for years that work in it, depending on the sound. Is it a baby grand? Is it a sample? Is it Ivory from Pro Tools, the plugin? I kind of can spot that stuff. Sometimes you get fooled, but it's all about, and circle back to the beginning. It's all about whatever works with the song. Mm-hmm. So when many of these presets I'm working off, I opened several sessions, current things that I'm working on, and went through and go, okay, this works with this piano, this works with this vocal, and what was I doing? I looked at my process and I'm like, and tweaked it a little bit here and there, but just to give a go-to was my whole vision. Mm-hmm. Here's put this on a piano, and you can tweak it if it doesn't work. And I should say that's a caveat. A lot of the presets will probably you have to mess with the threshold of the compressor, because everything's relative to the program that I was working with at the time of making it. So it may be too hot, maybe too low, but you can adjust it. But my thing was to just give you like, here's your piano, here's your kick drum, here's like 4 different snare options, because these are the things you change up. So when there are things you change up, I would give various options, you know, if that makes sense. Different colors
Yeah.
of but piano is a pretty basic one
Yeah.
that I've always got this sound on my head. I'm like, this is gonna sound good. And that is exactly what I put in that
Yeah.
specific
The piano,
preset.
I love the piano presets.
Yeah, it works. It's great.
Yeah,
And I'm
I-
kind of
the-
like miserable that I gave that to the world, but hopefully people dig it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I really appreciated, like, we have the drum presets and the guitar presets, but I loved the inclusion of the piano presets, or your synth loop preset is like,
Yeah.
as somebody who has usually that wall behind me is covered in synths, like,
Yeah. That's great.
yeah, just stuff like that is, like we said, kind of broadening the sonic palette of the
Yeah,
plugin
because there's
itself.
things built into it, like when you have a synth pad or the buzz saw, like it's funny because just I'm not a huge fan of everybody using distortion plugins on everything or saturation, you know, because then when the song gets mastered, you're like, oh shit, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
What is that noise? Oh, that's what the guy put on every channel, that he puts a cap there. But there are certain instruments I've found, especially bass guitar, where if you add a little bit of harmonics, distortion and things, and you just bake it in there like I did in the preset, it makes these things come to life and stand out. And you definitely makes you hear the notes better in a dense mix. If you grit up the bass or a synth, like it'll make that part stand out more without actually turning the volume up.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like that's a classic struggle, especially with kind of, like softer pad type elements or something.
Yeah.
Like how to make it sit nicely without overpowering, because it can be like an organ or something where it's just like killing you all of a sudden.
And that's another thing I did in the all those things. I'm like I said in the video, I'm a high pass filter guy. Like I'll go back, I go get through the mud, because my typical session that someone sends me these days, like a pop country song, is like 150 tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up on 24 tracks and you were done. Like that was huge to have, you know, a reel of tape and 24 tracks. I mean, God forbid if you can link 2 of them together. It was amazing. But now to make that much space, but what I'm getting to is all that little rumble of stuff in the background adds up and just eats your headroom up and eats the clarity up. And it all of a sudden you have depth and clarity and all this headroom. It's like all you gotta do is high pass filter everything.
Yeah.
And just I listen to it. I solo out the fab filter thing. So I solo out and hear where the fundamental is or where the junk is. And I got rid of all that stuff.
Oh, nice.
And so you shouldn't be able to put it, if you put that stuff on a bass, you're not going to have, or anything, it's already taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's a big part of how I
carving out
work.
the space.
Yeah, I'm carving out the space in the bottom, way bottom end. Because in a guitar, like it's electric guitar preset, if you need 40 or 30 hertz rumbling in the bottom, God bless you. But I haven't heard that record where that works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just get rid of it. And then you can focus on the stuff that matters. Say you want 100 hertz or like 200 to beef it up and fatten up. Then you can boost that stuff and not worry about bringing up this lump of crap that was living down there and shaking away. But I've gotten rid of that. So now you can go into the pre-EQ then, or not pre-EQ, the EQ and the plugin, and just boost it up and not worry about bringing up the junk.
Yeah, that's very good to know. Yeah, it's addition by subtraction, right? Just
and that's what I wanted to be able to tell people when they're buying this is the fact that they're covered on that stuff. It's just a big part.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, I just loaded up a bunch on a song I had, like a random session I had, and my big takeaway, other than like it just made everything sound good, was there's nothing like you're doing that doesn't make sense. It is just done in the way, like it feels like it's done in the best possible way for somebody who doesn't necessarily, like, I know the move, but I don't necessarily understand every reason for it. But
that's great.
Like, your version is like it works, and now I can start to see why it's working. Like you're saying, like with high passing everything,
right?
As it accumulates, you're like, oh, I start to see why this is making sense, and why this is being approached this way, which was
right. That's great.
Very pleasant.
I'm so glad to hear that, man.
Yeah,
that is exactly what I aim for and hoped for.
Yeah, these streams are always very funny for me because I'm not the mixer of the team, which I think is why I do
That's
the
okay.
streams, because it's like, this is me learning, right? This is me like how I'm, oh, the feed froze. Uh-oh. Let's double check that. Shouldn't be. Where are we at, y'all? I don't think we're frozen. No, we're good.
I have no idea.
No, we're good. We're good. Sorry. I see that. Oh, it froze for a second. Uh-oh.
That's a couple people.
We should be back, y'all. Oh, no. I'm plugged into my internet. We are good to go. I have not seen any warnings. I'm so sorry if the feed is frozen. It looks good on our end.
It's not me.
Yeah, I don't think it's either of us.
Yeah.
Let us know if it's still frozen, and we will solve it. I'm showing full bars and like my fastest internet I have. I ran a cable through my house.
That's great, dude.
We're good to go.
You have to do it.
I need to go into my crawl space and like put it up.
You find bones.
Yeah, I don't like. I don't know. I live in Nashville, and I'm from California, so like the creepy crawlies that exist out there.
The humidity, like
yeah,
that's just yeah.
Yeah. Sorry guys if the feed froze. We should be back up. Let us know if it's not, and we will burn the whole thing down. Sean had asked, how do you handle negative responses from artists or performers when you ask them to redo the things you had talked about? Usually people I deal with are quite polite, but sometimes there's a bad apple.
I haven't had a bad experience with that, honestly. Thank God. Because, well, I was an engineer for a long time. I sat with the artist going, come on, dude, you can do that again. You got it. You got better than that. Or vocal comping, or just sitting with the singer in the room and recording. So I know how to talk to these dudes. And A&R, they're like A&R with a label. I don't ask them for it. Because then it throws a red flag up, and then they're like, why can't you work with what we gave you? Because there are a lot of guys, I mean, probably 90% of the mixers out there, just, I know a bunch of them, they're like, why would you do that? You make your day longer. I mix what they give me. So I put it in the perspective of the artist, like, again, knowing how to talk to an artist as a former engineer, that makes a big deal. And just be able to talk to creative types in that way. Like, you're going, hey, you have this is what I'm coming into. I can work with it, but it would be much better if I could get this. And then while you're in there, you add a shaker, because it'll make the chorus hit. And I do it all the time. You could pull any of the producers that I work with. They're all like, oh yeah, dude, that guy asks me for shit all the time, but it made the song better. And my wife says I care too much sometimes, but I do.
That's a good problem.
It's a good problem, I think. But I think I haven't had it come up to where it's somebody came back at me and said, why can't you work with that? Because I think they can see past they know I need it for a reason. So if I did have someone saying what's wrong with that, I would say, okay, don't worry about it. I'll just work with it.
I got you.
Yeah, I got it, dude. Don't worry about it. I just downloaded 4 ozone plugins and had to buy them because you guys forgot to turn off the air conditioner in your bus when you track that in North Carolina. And that's that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I feel like with some of the deadlines and the timelines that things are happening, that makes total sense. Is like, it's how fast can we get it done while it's still not being a total disaster, instead of like making
story of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 99% of my stress in my life is a fictitious deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think everybody's lying to me now when someone says this is when we have to have it. Like, I know they're lying, and I can't. You want me to push this guy aside in the middle of the mix because of that? It just, everybody I know goes through the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a problem with the labels, I think.
It gets more high stakes, I think, too. People have their schedules in mind, and
they promise radio is single apart when they're still tracking vocals, and they haven't even scheduled mixing yet. And then I get the tracks, and there's a problem with the tracks, and I gotta,
turn it around.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah,
but you deal with it, and you just try not to let it get the best of you.
Are you? How liberal are you with folding in stuff that you need when you can't get it, like a drum sample, or like, I know some mixers have their drum sample that ends up being on every album they do.
Right.
Are you pretty liberal with that, or you try to stay hands off of that?
Of adding samples?
Of kind of layering in your own stuff.
Oh, I do it every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Even with the only time I don't do is a lot of times now is with programming.
Okay.
Because people with programming with acoustic drums, absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
Because anybody who can get with today's production, it's say, like I said before, 150 track song, and you've got an 8-piece, 8 mics and the drums, you can get those drums sounding completely bitchin' on their own.
Yeah.
And then you add in the other 142 tracks. Those
Yeah.
drums don't sound awesome anymore. And
Sound-
anybody who says, "Oh, why can't you use my drums?" That's a crazy
Yeah.
mentality. Don't you want
Yeah.
to sound like you want to sound the best you can be? And at least in my world, that's my perspective. Like I don't want to mix records. I have no interest in mixing songs from an artist who wants to sound bad. And there's still some of those out there. There was a patch of them about, I don't know, 8-10 years ago.
Yeah.
With all the stomp clap stuff, people wanted to sound bad, and I was ready to like jump off a roof because I didn't get into this world to make
make
songs
bad
sound
records.
bad. Yeah. Anyway, so I layer in stuff all the time, and
cool.
I use my library I made years ago. I use it every single day.
Yeah. I feel like that's I'm always curious. I've never met anybody who's hesitant about that. I feel like
Yeah.
it's like,
No,
whatever
but
makes
with-
the song sound as good as possible.
Right, but with programming though, it's funny because these dudes who do programming are really good and really they know they have a certain soft kick for this layer and a certain this and this and this. And they combined if the programming guy is good, the producer's good, and a lot of these guys I'm working with are awesome with it. They have a sound that's built into 3 layers of kick drums that will work with the drums. So they give me 3 layers of kick, and some of the recall notes are like bring up soft kick 0-2 and a little bit in the second chorus. And they know exactly. So if I go in there and swap it out with a punchy Serbian sounding kick from a pop record, they're gonna be like, what the hell is that? So with programming, I try not to mess with that. I work with what I got on that end.
Yeah. It looks like we might, oh my goodness, still be frozen.
Is this a recording? So you at least put it back up later on?
Yeah. We'll be good.
That's good.
It looks like it's just a little, it looks like it's lagging out, which is insane. Wow, that is not good because we are all set on our end.
Oh, well.
That's a real bummer. That is the most anticlimactic way to potentially end this. I'll post this back up as a recording. So
Okay.
we can end our conversation properly. It kind of kills the Q&A part, which is the worst. Oh my goodness.
Go YouTube.
I mean, yeah,
You're being throttled.
I guess we're showing full connection and it's showing live. I don't know, but then I click on the actual thing. This is the problem with how far in, like, we're almost in 2023. Everybody started live streaming in earnest in 2020, right?
Yep.
And we still cannot figure out the optimal way
Yeah.
to do all
I think it's just bandwidth.
I don't know, but wow, that's embarrassing.
It's me. This kind of stuff happens to me all the time.
Oh man,
It doesn't have to be a live stream. It could be like anything.
If anything, we should just do these as conversations and then post them. But we like to have the audience interaction as well because it's definitely more interesting. Yeah, Daniel's like, this interview is the bomb. Sorry that it's frozen, Daniel. We'll post this full one. Yeah, it's great. Thankfully, like half of my team is in Australia, so nobody.
That's
else is
actually hard to
witnessing
deal
this
with.
except me. Yeah.
I would text Josh and it was like home. I'd have to say, Siri, what time is it in Sydney, Australia?
Oh,
and like, it's 4 a.m. Like
my calendar that goes up is like, because we deal with, I'm in Nashville and then we have some people in the EU and some people in Australia, and it's like nightmare scenario.
They're in the future and you're not.
Yeah. But thankfully they're asleep. They won't witness this embarrassment. No, I just wanted to wrap this up. The one thing I wanted to touch on that we haven't touched on was your use of the effects module in the plugin itself. Just because it's something I personally like to highlight because I think the effects sound so good, and I'm glad that somebody else was like, really
I love them. They're great.
Yeah. So I know in the video you were just using kind of the effects from the core pack, but did you end up kind of designing your own using the module for what the effects section is? Exactly
the same thing as what I use every day.
That's
so like pre-delayed verbs and like I'm a big fan. I used to own a bunch of PCM 42 lexicon delays and mono delays. I used to put them in stereo and offset them by 10 milliseconds, that whole trick. So I did all that in the plugin. Like I made them lo-fi and analog sounding and the whole thing. So I covered everything you would need on that end, I think, for at least one song I would do.
Yeah.
But and it's some extras, some crazy long rooms and halls and stuff like that. But All useful stuff.
All useful. Good.
If I was to buy, I would buy this pack, and I'm not saying it from a bias perspective, but I would buy it just because I'd be like, that dude covered everything that I need to get through a song.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part about it, was just creating this, is giving the end user the ability to have a laptop and one plugin. And they don't need, like, when you go through your list of plugins and you're searching through them and you get lost and you can't find what you need, that takes away from creativity. If you could just load this on, drop a preset on from somebody, or start your own and just get it sounding the way it should. It just keeps you creative and faster, and you don't need as much stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate the speed of it, especially, and just like the simplicity of load it up, go to work, and call it a day.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I feel like that's a good.
Thank you.
That's a good spot to end it. And apologies if you're watching and it's frozen. Hopefully you're watching this full version on our channel. We will sort that out. Jeff's pack is out September 30th. Wish I would have said that before it crashed, but September 30th. Next week, we'll have a big hype post this week. Keep an eye out. ControlHub is available now. Start a free trial. Definitely check out this pack. I'm biased because I get to use it, but it's really good. So
I'm just psyched you like it, man.
Yeah,
because you nailed all the things that I wanted to make sure people got out of it. You've said them 3 or 4 times now. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, we
did it. We did it.
And I only used it for the first time earnestly because I like test them as they come through, but we have so many different packs going on at any given time. I'm just like throwing it up. It works cool because I'm not on the development side, but I used it earnestly last night and I was like, oh.
I've used it in so many things now, current records, and when I'm on Zoom doing my screen share recalls, they're like, what the hell is that? Bypass that for me. And I'm like, oh, it's coming. They're like, we got to have that. You got to get us that.
Give us that.
So I'll be hitting you up for some licenses, I'm sure, from some artists that are like, I got to have it. And especially some of the guys that I made presets off of in the pack. They're like, wait, that's great. And I'm like, I'll get you. Okay. And the guys, Finmore, I got to thank them for letting me use their song to do that, because those dudes are great. And it's hard to get, they're a fantastic group. And it's hard to get people to let you use their song for this kind of thing. So I got to hook them up as well.
We will.
Killer. Great.
We'll talk. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. And,
it's an honor, man.
September
Thank
30th,
you.
And we'll talk to you guys all soon.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Yes.